Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And numerous people have linked me a video that Greg O'Gallagher, aka Kinobody, did discussing the press. Now, a lot of people are like, Jason, you're probably going to rip Greg apart for this. No, I'm really not. By the way, I appreciate the shout out that he gave me, because again, I did advise him to do the floor press, and I think at this point in the game, given to where Greg knows that he's weaker on the pause bench, he's really strong at touch and go, but he doesn't have a lot of power out of the bottom if he has to come to a full stop. You know, he had been experimenting with putting his feet up on the bench, and I said, this is not the best way to deal with this. Powerlifters, we know from many, many, many years of doing this, the best way to get that training effect is the floor press. He started implementing again, and he likes it. And I will tell you guys, and again, I have a pretty thick chest. For me, I love the floor press for that. I feel like I personally, you know, and there's EMG data and there's actual research and data to support this. I personally feel that I get more chest involvement off of a floor press than I do even a bench press. Right? I mean, the floor press, I probably feel it in my chest more than I do the bench, more than the weighted dip. And those are exercises that I like. I love weighted dips. You know, that's interesting that he threw the weighted dip in there, because I am going to agree. If you're trying to really, really thicken your upper body up, you're trying to put a lot of size on your upper body. I think the weighted dip is a very difficult exercise to beat. It's a fantastic mass builder. It's a fantastic mass builder. And like he felt personally, it's a better overall size builder for the upper body than the standing press. I don't know that I'm going to disagree with that. I don't know that I'm going to disagree with that. It gives you a hell of a lot of bang for your buck. I mean, if we were to come down to it, if guys say, hey, if someone really wanted to build their upper body with only two exercises, not that I would recommend that, you know, what would they do? It's like, I don't know, man, maybe weighted chin-ups and weighted dips. I mean, that combination, again, would be difficult to beat for just putting size on your torso, right? Your arms, your chest, your back, your shoulders. It's going to work pretty well. I mean, that's two pretty complete exercises. The only thing you might be lacking would be a little bit of mid delt, maybe a little bit of rear delt, stuff like that. But the point we come to has to do with his point about the press. So he's calling it the standing press, and I like to just call it the press, which is the historic name, but standing press works too. And I have to say that a lot of times also just to get people to grasp it. You know, and he has mixed feelings about it. He wants to love it. There's no need to want to love it, Greg. The press is a great exercise. It is one of my top two favorite exercises. That and the deadlift, those are my go-tos. That's my shit. I love those two exercises. Those are my top favorite of all times. If I could do nothing else but those two exercises and train nothing else, if people say you can only do two exercises the rest of your life, that's what it would be. I love them. They're fun. I enjoy them. But I enjoy them for one of the reasons that he pointed out. They're hard. They're stubborn, and they will beat you up. Those are exercises that you can't do limit sets on. And I think that's part of where his beef with it comes in. The press is one of the single most stubborn exercises you will ever encounter. It is difficult to progress on. You will stagnate. And he's like, well, I feel like that doesn't allow for progress. So it's like, no, it's very slow progress, and it has to be programmed more carefully. And he's like, the difference is the reason you can progress easier on something like the seated dumbbell is because you can cheat. People say, what do you mean? In other words, if you're stalled at a certain point with the seated dumbbell, you can just not lower the weight another inch. And if you just cut an inch out of the range of motion, or you tuck your elbow a little more, all of a sudden you can handle 10 more pounds. You lean further back and you put more chest and take more shoulder out of it. You just push yourself further into the bench, you can lift more weight all of a sudden. Right? It's an exercise you can cheat. It's really hard to cheat on the press, and in fact, if you cheat too much on the press, I mean, the layback is important actually for getting your upper chest involved, particularly if you're going to pause on the chest on it like I do. You need that layback, but if you lay back too far and you can't drive yourself forward, you also can't lock it, because the press has a point when it hits the head to where the bar path has to come behind your head, and you've got to drive yourself forward a bit, which is what gives it a lot of the benefits that you will never get with a seated exercise. Because you got to remember the press, if you go look at all the data on it, it works the rear delts. It works the triceps, things like that, a hell of a lot more than any other overhead press does. Right? It really gets in there, gets the long head of the tricep. It gets your rear delts. It hits your traps. It actually hits the traps harder than the majority of exercises people are out there doing thinking they're working their traps with. It's a trapezius builder, and it's the top of the exercise that does it. And again, there's a lot of data on that. So we start talking about these other exercises. Yeah, but the press really hits a lot of muscles in the upper body different than other lifts do. And you've got someone like Greg who he wants to like it. Well, here's what I would say. I think that Greg's physique, his really, really strong press, is responsible for a lot of the size that he has and the shape that he has. Let's be realistic here. The press was loved by a lot of those golden era bodybuilder types for a long time. Like that was one of their go-to exercises. There's a reason for that. It does help create that classic look. And I mean, I'm not a bodybuilding fan. You guys know that. I dislike bodybuilding very, very much. Greg does, but his upper body, his lower body needs more work, but Greg does have kind of that classic physique look. And he does, right? You guys can't deny that. I can't deny that as someone who abhors bodybuilding. The guy has kind of that golden era look to his upper body. I think the press is a big, big part of it. I think his chin-ups and pull-ups, I think that's a big part of it, and I think the press. And so what I would say to someone like Greg, yeah, but the press did build a lot of your physique. It's responsible for a lot of what you have in terms of your shoulder development, your upper chest. That's what you built it with. It really is, because that's where his foundation was. And Martin Burkham, who got a lot of his stuff from, said the same thing. That is what got him there. And yes, it was difficult. And yeah, you progress really, really, really slow on it. But if you put in a lot of years on it, and that's the point. I mean, everyone thinks that they're going to get all these results, so they're going to train for a year, and all of a sudden they're going to look like Greg. Oh, you're not going to. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I mean, I don't care what program he sells you. You're going to have to put some years in, and you're going to have to probably get your press up to 200 plus pounds, guys. You're probably going to have to get your bench to at least 300 pounds, right? You're probably going to have to get your weighted pull up to 100 pounds or more hanging on there. You know, you're going to have to build that strength base. And I can understand what he means about it seems to stall. It's difficult. It's just, you know, it can be a programming nightmare at times because people will stall on it. Yeah, but it's like, Greg, you stalled on it, but you got there. You're now pressing over 200 pounds, and look at what it's done for you. Yeah, it was slow. Yes, it was tedious. Yes, you just feel floored if you go too hard on this exercise, just like you do on a deadlift. And that's what I would say with something like the press. Don't program limit sets. And I know Greg's really big on the training to failure and then drop sets and stuff, right? Well, that's an exercise where that will bury you on. What I would say on the press is an exercise that responds very well to practice. Meaning, instead of coming in and doing sets to failure and drop sets, it's an exercise you want to program some density on, right? The press is an exercise that you could come in and do 10 sets of 3 on. Like 10 sets, 12. I do 12 sets right now. I do 12 doubles every Thursday, or at least 10 doubles. But I also sometimes come and train a max on it on a separate day. Or I'll do 4 or 5 really heavy doubles after my benching on Tuesday, right? But Friday rolls around, and I do it for dynamic effort work. And I'll go weights that are light. Sometimes I'm only doing 170 pounds, and I'll do 10 doubles or whatever after doing floor press for dynamic work. All right, you're coming in and you're not necessarily hitting limit sets. You're getting practice with moderate weights, lifting it as explosively as you can, getting that technique practice. And it's that accumulation of the practice on it and lifting with it explosively and not hitting limit sets that brings your press up. It will get very, very high. I mean, that's how I originally got my press one. You guys remember when I hit last year 227 and a half with a pause on the chest on the press. I had previously built my press back up by doing 10 sets of 3, though. I was doing 10 sets of 3. And that built the strength to be able to come and hit that. And where I do agree with Greg again, it's a great tester of strength. And if I could create my own strength sport, I've been asked this before, what would I do? I don't know, it'd probably be the deadlift, the press, and the weighted chin up with no weight classes, right? You would need weight classes because if a guy's too fat, what's going to happen? It's going to happen. He's not going to be able to do a weighted chin up at all. So there would be your weight class would be determined by can you even do chin ups at all. And things like the deadlift isn't dependent on body weight. But the deadlift is the least responsive to changes in body weight. So gaining weight doesn't make you stronger on the deadlift usually. In other words, if I were to take you guys right now and have you bulk up 50 pounds, mostly fat, bulking as quickly as you could, you think your bench press would go up, but your deadlift probably won't. It probably won't go up, not significantly. So that would be the perfect, to me, the perfect just strength sport to determine how strong you are, and we wouldn't need weight classes. Deadlift, press, weighted chin up, no weight classes. And I'd say a strength base is anyone who can hit at least an 800 total, right? 800 total, that'd be your benchmark. And then if you can get 1,000 or more, you're a beast. You are a beast. But back to the point. With the press, I would say no. For novice lifters, they need to do that. They need to struggle through that. They need to struggle to gain 10 pounds because they need that. That's going to determine a lot of their entire base of their core, their shoulder girdle, everything else. Yeah, they're going to have to put in work. And you know what? For a more intermediate or an advanced lifter like Greg, there could be a point to where you do need to rotate accessory work, and you might need to back off on the press just a little bit or spend a period of time doing a lighter technique work with it and using some other exercises to help build it, whether it's a one-arm dumbbell press, a one-arm barbell press, adding in more weighted dips. A closed grip bench press is an amazing, amazing accessory for the press. Right? Maybe doing some extra long head tricep work, getting in and doing some skull crushers where you use shoulder extension. All right, to put a little more long head on the tricep, because the tricep is oftentimes a limiting factor on the press, right? It can very quickly become a limiting factor at times because the press works the tricep so much more than any other overhead variation by, and again, data is showing like up to 40% more than the seated stuff. So yeah, it can be limited by those. You can do those to bring it up. And like with any other lift, it's a technical lift. It's a difficult lift to progress on, and it sometimes does need accessory work. It needs some specialty work, but that's okay. The lift itself is great. It does pay off, and I don't think Greg should necessarily stop programming it. I do understand the points he's making, and I feel like that needs to be addressed a little bit. But no, that exercise, it is king. It is one of the greatest exercises of all time. Absolutely. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.